All right, so the SS Palo Alto. So that's a prime example of what I'm talking about as far as clean waste. Recycling is the sadness of something like SS Palo Alto. And the reason it was called SS Palo Alto, guys, is because of SS Nazism, right? Likely, is because they were, even though it was 1910, like the fact that they kept that name for that old just hunk of trash in the ocean, which became an iconic place to go take drugs. Basically, like to go look at that and just veg out, you know what I mean, with something like LSD. Just ignorant people laying waste, you know. That old statue is like a Hoekstemon Museum, or a what we would call Jynx Cathedral, because Hoekstemon people would say that's too horribly humiliating and ugly, right? Why we called it Hoekstemon, because it just never got fixed up, because it wasn't in their interest. And I said, well, what about all the railings a long time ago, guys? So all the railings on the top of that concrete ship that is SS Palo Alto. How about taking all of that and recycling it? You know what I mean? Because basically what it was, guys, the entire thing we know now was without SS Palo Alto was, oh, Peyronie's can only be cured by narco-pharma, is what those people claim, right? And how it was all just a battle over pornographic agenda and Peyronie's, trying to sell us a Chemcast and implant we don't fucking need. We know that a woman can heal that with her tongue and no fat on the man's part. If the man does no fat and the woman does mainly oral, like even very like not her hands at all for a while, to heal it, to give the shaft a rejuvenation and a time when it can just breathe and be free, because it's been a slave to its hand for so long due to pornographic agenda, and how that became a very vicious fight called Whipple-Bonpocracy, where women from the Bay Area were like, no, we have to sell you plastic chem doll. That's our entire mission, because all of those women said size matters, and we vote down on average dong and smaller dong, meaning people in SS Palo Alto, that group that was Whipple-Bonpocracy, the people that tried to fuck Zuckerberg over. Guys, like, understand, people who hated Mark Zuckerberg, who were involved in that movement, because Mark Zuckerberg was a target demographic for tranny conversion, meaning they said that's somebody we desperately want to turn into Caitlyn Jenner, said the SS Palo Alto crew that was Whipple-Bonpocracy. And why I had to create the Mechosphere to save Mark's ass. As a friend and a fan, I did this, guys, because they were going to try to crucify Mark. In the media, they were going to try to slaughter him, guys, and everybody who shared physical likeness to him. And so that's where the Mechosphere got created. The Mechosphere is about that sort of idea of an SS Palo Alto's rails being turned into ammo cans. Does that make sense? Or an old amusement park, because we know that amusement parks that were abandoned, 1,000 abandoned amusement parks in America, right? Let's say most of them, the majority, they have roller coasters made of metal, and that's just sitting, and just all that's doing is harboring human trafficking. They're just taking people who they hate and just funneling them into Hoekstemon or what we call Jynx Cathedral, meaning an abandoned amusement park. They're funneling them in there and holding them as prisoners and killing them. It is what that harbors over time. When you have a bunch of, like, if you have an abandoned water park, or an abandoned amusement park, an abandoned arena, an abandoned laser tag place, right? Which in the study, that's where Dan Trolley defeated a man named Abel Beckman. Abel Beckman was a part Jewish guy who got fucking killed in animal combat because he had Peyronie's scarring. That they funneled him into that realm because he went crazy from his penis collapsing in his hand, right? And then they jacked him up on fucking roids, and he became a eunuch, an object of eunuch slave trade. You know, because they said there's no, and so that's what the porno bay left was doing. The porno bay left and plastic chem dog. The group that was selling you deep throat porno, coupled with plastic chem dog procedure, right? And how people, like I know a woman who she desperately tries to keep people's eyes closed on this subject. Like many women desperately try to keep people's eyes closed on this subject. You know what I mean? And I said, you got to wake up. They're going to try to make you a eunuch slave in the world of animal combat. And so that's why we created something like the Mechosphere, where it's all industrial mechanical. Nazis, of course, would say, oh, the Jews are going to make it a copper scare called copper brea, or a steel, like a steel scare or ammo scare. And I said, no, look at all the metal that we have. And this goes hand in hand with the idea that is space incineration. Space incineration is where we take the trash from the ocean, like the plastic, and put it on a ship with no humans on it, send it far into deep space, and incinerate the trash in an area where it wouldn't affect us. Through testings, they would have to figure this out, because we wouldn't want to create scarring pollution in the sky that would come back to destroy us. You know what I mean? And then the radical leftists would argue, oh, there's poor aliens out there that we're polluting to death, is what they would say. And that becomes a whole new divide on planet Earth, right? But first and foremost, we have to figure out, can trash to be taken from the ocean and incinerated in space, right? Deep space, using a machine that we guide with our eyes on computers from Earth, but there's nobody out in the ship. It's AI out there. And we have to have multiple methods of self-destruct for that object that we would name HAL, right? We would call him HAL, because that's what Kubrick said would be the problem, is that Borg would try to form its own ideas and possibly cut corners itself, like the same way one of your employees would go out in the field and he would cut corners and get us fucked over, and get you, the owner, fucked over. HAL is capable of the same. So they would have to say, we have to have multiple methods of self-destruct, like the idea that HAL could play a masquerade illusion on the leaders who were controlling him with a computer camera. You know what I mean? But that's the idea of Jynx Cathedral recycling, Earth and Demo Builder Mine, is how we take old roller coaster tracks and turn them into ammo cans for the Navy, or we turn them into pots and pans for commercial kitchens, right? Through a metal refining process. They literally melt metal down to quote unquote purify it, right? And so we would say, oh yeah, we won't run into copper breo if we do that. And that's what the Mechosphere is all about, is creating an internet space for industrial metal. Does that make sense? All things industrial mechanical. That's where big billionaire investors go to look at their ads, is in that sort of industry. And within that industry, since it's all things metal, gold is a part of that, right? And the big investors have to be on the right side, which is the side of workers' pride, meaning when the porno bay left agenda and Chemcast's agenda try to go too far, we would have to say that's becoming pollution to our species now. But we have to change it up because it became too brutally apparent and obvious that was the kind of oppression that they were putting on the working class people, and understanding how Mark and Elon's investments can't survive without the worker. Where Jordan Peterson got it wrong was he said, oh, a major shift would cancel the worker. And I said, how? You can't, it will always be on the backs of the worker. The worker is the one who will survive. The guy who works the fryer all fucking day, and the guy who builds houses all fucking day. As long as you have those two, the species will survive. The guy who mans the fryer at some cookout barn where they serve food, and you go pay your money that you earn from, swinging a hammer all fucking day. That is the crew that will see our species through. It isn't the socialite class or the weak bourgeois class. The lazy class who just sells their image for a living, those people suffer. It's not the worker who suffers. Okay. Mark and Elon would become, so those guys are like working class billionaires because they, Elon provides people with jobs, health and security, right? Through Tesla or through his other things. Now Elon has what's called ROVEC. ROVEC is rolling vector combined, and that's for Mars rover and Moon rover expedition. Is ROVEC. ROVEC originally was tractor mechanical for Earth, and then that quickly became tractor mechanical for outer space, right? And they test out ROVEC here on Earth, right? And so that's a big part of the Mechosphere is space tech, where people can just tune in and look at that all day. And those are ads for big billionaire guys or people trying to succeed in the world. In general, like working class people can go there too, right? And they can see what the billionaires are investing in, how it's all about the steal, right? And within that space is ROVEC and also video NFT Shotokan Karambit simulation. Yeah, video NFT Shotokan Karambit simulation, where they show the porno fantasy trying to find itself in real life. And it fails much of the time because it's eunuchs of Holocaust consent just funneling in to slaughter Whipple Bon Pocris when they try to create a blow-bang prank with your cheating wife, where you had a cheating wife who hated you so much, you the average dong husband who was loving, because that woman was brainwashed by the porno bay left and plastic chem doctor, and she actually set up cameras in a hotel room and in her own house to show her cheating on her husband with a group of well-endowed men. And she used that as a fraud stock, basically, like a weapon against that man to taunt him with, right? How she collected a montage of her laughing and enjoying life with him and then just going behind his back and just getting, throat fucked by 4 or 5 well-endowed men at once. And multiple times this took place. This was likely an episode in the San Francisco Bay Area. Right? All of those people who marched for, we sell the big dick deep throat porno thing, coupled with plastic chem doll recuperation, meaning they sell you the porn and starve you out if you have an average dong or smaller dong, and then they sell you operations off of your failure there. Does that make sense? And they were just slaughtering men. Lesbians were out parading that already. Fuck them. Let their dicks fall off in their fucking hand. Like, not fuck them, have sex with them. Fuck them, like, get rid of them. Like, forget about those guys. Just let their cocks fall off in their fucking hand. Size matters. Just like we wanted you to buy Vax. Just like we wanted you to fucking buy Vax, we want you to buy a fucking penile implant or Xiaflex. That's who those people were. Was all the LGBTQ shit down in the Bay, the BLM shit, all of that stuff. That crowd was going to get... because they went by race and social justice so much, they would eventually say, when consciousness shifted massively, and they said we want to create a master species, like crazy white people would say, put a small penis guy like Hitler in charge, like a guy with a small penis in charge like Hitler, who's not Jewish, and because he's the most oppressed, and it's his turn to starve the Jews who used porn to starve him, because people would always blame the Jews for porn. They would always blame the Jews for porn because of a guy like John Rutkowski. You know what I mean? What it was before was Whipple Bon Pocris iconic populism. That's what we lived in before. It was called iconic populism, right? And that tends to be a fascist thing towards penis size, right? Towards a smaller dong and average dong. And that later turns into anti-Semitism. Does that make sense? That later turns into them making an attempt to trying to put the Jews away, like they did using a guy like Adolf Hitler who had a small penis, because they said, the LGBTQ people who say, it's a race war and a size war. They would say, Adolf Hitler's in charge now because he had a tiny broken penis. Very small. And they said it's his turn to do what he wants with the Jews who turned us into fraudulent capital, is what they would say. Not what I said. I saved Mark's ass with the Mechosphere. We show video NFT Shotokan Krambit to destroy the weak bourgeois who tried to get Mark canceled. Make sense? Right, they were going to, and so that's where we're at. Let's see, what else we got? So FBQ is a way of saying small glove Muay Thai. Small glove Muay Thai already exists in 1FC, but it's the idea that they could actually cover their fingers entirely with the new small glove, and that would officially be called FBQ, because you can best believe that would change the way in which their fighting looks if they close those fingers off the entire time. You guys just saw what happened with Max Holloway and Gaethje. So that's bounded queens. Like with that last exchange where it was just punching, that's called bounded queens. Before they wrap those fingers entirely, they'll call that, after they wrap those fingers entirely, they'll call that bounded queens. Right? A place where you're going to see double knockouts, you know, and then FBQ is Muay Thai, like they do in 1FC with the small gloves. But once they actually close the fingers entirely off, meaning once they hide the fingers with a new glove, a new type of paw, that sport's going to look a little bit different. You know what I mean? Small glove Muay Thai. If they made a really high-tech small glove that covered the fingers and thumb entirely, that would be called FBQ, right? Really gnarly kickboxing sport. And then bounded queens is small glove boxing. The finish that you saw between Holloway and Gaethje last night, very disturbing. Very disturbing ending to a fight. I said, that's possibly the ugliest knockout I've ever seen. Like a one-shot knockout. Like, you can expect Justin Gaethje to go by now. Because, like, look at what happened to Chuck Liddell. That same technique happened to Chuck Liddell, where it was a guy who got hit on the jaw and nose region and fell onto his head, right? Like his weight crushed vertically first and then slid out to the side, and in doing so he injured his neck, right? Even if it wasn't like a serious, even if it was just micro fractures, he injured his neck. Does that make sense? Like, even if it's something that, it's like not, we can't see it on an x-ray that he has a badly broken neck, but he has a tweaked neck. Even if he doesn't, even if it doesn't, they don't officially call that a neck injury. But you look at the way both him and Chuck fell. And after that with Chuck, he became very frail. You can expect something similar to happen to Justin Gaethje, where he's gonna start just get plodding forward and get him fucking blasted. Right? It happens to the best of them, guys. Like that, there's just no returning from that kind of vicious one-shot knockout after a storied career. And you're going to see shit like that in Bounded Queens. And that final exchange was something like you'd see in Bounded Queens. Even if they said, we're going to do 1 5-minute round to see who can win a Holloway versus Gaethje slugfest. A 1 5-minute round with no judges, which would be called Iron Lock Bounded Queens. You know, IRBQ or IRFBQ. Or, sorry, ILFBQ or IL, what am I saying? You could say IL, but ILFBQ, where they say it's Iron Lock, meaning there's no judges. There's just a time limit, and if it goes the distance, it is a no contest. They would say that's mixed martial law, something they need to implement. And you would see the craziest. You would see that same exchange that you saw last night, like a very similar thing, in Bounded Queens Iron Lock. You know, or that kind of. You know, there's sure to be other names of. There's sure to be other names of the that type of rule set where it's just 1 minute or like 5-minute kumite, no judges. These fucking MMA guys. Yeah, that was sad last night. What happened? Right at the buzzer. That was a buzzer beater knockout, like right at the final minute, and that was grotesque. You know, very disturbing the way he felt, and you can guarantee his teeth ain't gonna be the same. You know, after that, he's gonna be a slightly altered person. Their jaws and shit literally change over time. You see it, like you see in their teeth, how when they get hit enough, it actually moves their teeth over, like in a chronic way. Does that make sense? Like if you look at some MMA guy's teeth and face at the beginning of his career, and then look at it when he's like 40, how his jaws actually moved, right? Like it's actually become crooked. You know, and then there's the guys at the top, they develop what's called meth edge, meaning you can't tell if they've been even hitting a pipe, like a crack pipe, or because they learned that they had been snorting coke that was cut so many times. Like they did what was called Peruvian flake. They said this is Peruvian flake. Many times they snorted it, and it turns out every time there was trace amount of meth. In porn, you see that a lot with their faces. Porno chicks' faces, like pornographic actresses who are female, you can really see it in their faces, in their jaw, that they've been harnessed out with meth, which they thought was cocaine. They were like, "Oh yeah, I've been getting pure cocaine this whole time," when it turns out they were using meth the entire time, trace amount, and then they woke up on, you know, day 700 from doing cocaine every day, and it turns out they were a meth addict. They tried meth for the first time and they said, "Oh, looks like I'm a meth addict," and they just began using meth. That became a new battle, right? After 10 years of, you know, gourmet luxury, stupid expensive hotels and restaurants, like those females in porno were like, after that 10-year stint where they had it all, they literally fell off and became a meth addict in the streets of Haiti narcotics. A place like downtown LA. Like you'll literally see, you already see this, a former porn star who just lives in a tent with a towel to wipe her ass with, and she just looks for meth to use all day. That's the world you're living in. So we got some good things now. So like I said, Jynx Cathedral, space incineration, right? Jynx Cathedral, metal recycling, because people are going to say, "Oh, the Mechosphere will create steel scare or copper brea," right? But we said no, the Mechosphere is a must. People must be allowed to see the realm of metal, including gold, right? And all things about fool's gold versus real gold, too, within that space. All things paintball and Caprio Muerna. Which I'm going to release a second video here in a bit about Caprio Muerna. Yeah, I think that's it for now. I'll check back in with you here in a little bit. W.E. Crumkey.